friends, Elizabeth here from Plant-Based Bride, and I'm back again with another Plan With Me video, this time for June 2018, and I'm very excited to get into this one. You may have noticed that I've had some cotton branches around in some of my videos on my Instagram for the past couple months now, and that is because one day after work I was walking down the street and saw a little plant shop. I popped in and they were selling these cotton branches, and it was the first time I'd ever seen cotton plants in real life and been able to touch them and look at them close up, and I just found them so interesting looking. I don't really know how to describe my fascination with them. I just think they're so interesting, and I don't know, I find it fascinating that that's how cotton grows. So I bought myself 3 branches and brought them home, and I've just been getting inspired by them ever since. So I thought for June I would do a cotton theme. I thought I would try my best to capture their fluffy, cloud-like quality in my bullet journal. So starting off with my June cover page, I wanted to do something relatively simple and thought I would make sort of a border with the cotton. So I started by drawing all of the little cotton bulbs, I guess. I don't know if that's the proper term, all the way around, sort of at different angles, and I used my own branches as inspiration to see how they look from different angles. It is always easier for me to draw things from a reference, but I always find it way easier to draw things from a reference that's right in front of me instead of a picture, because you get a lot more information from the 3-dimensional thing right in front of you that you can touch and see from different angles than I can anyway from a photo. So I drew a bunch of little cotton bulbs all the way around, connected by one branch. I'm using this technique that I've done many times before now, of using my Tombow Brush Pens in a watercolor sort of fashion. So on the left side there, I have a plastic page protector, and you can really use any kind of plastic for this purpose. And the way this technique works is that you color on the plastic with the brush pen that you want to use. So in this case, I have a light gray, and that's the Tombow Brush Pen N95. And I also have a brown brush pen, and this is the Tombow Brush Pen in the color 977. And I colored with these on the plastic, and then I used my clear brush pen, which is the blender, it's N00. I used that to pick up the color and used that clear Tombow brush pen with the pigment on it from the plastic to apply to the actual page. So in this way, you're getting a diluted color. You're applying with a clear pen. It just is applying water, basically. It's a water-based pen, and there's no pigment to it. So it will apply the pigment you've picked up from the plastic until that runs out, and then it will sort of fade away. And it gives it a lighter look. It helps to blend a lot more easily, and it gives it more of that very soft watercolor look that you can kind of build up over time. So you can see me continue to do this method. I just keep adding more pigment from the brush pens when I feel like I've kind of run out of the color. And then I just pick it up with that clear brush pen and use that to apply it and just slowly build up the color as I go along. Now, the reason why I'm using a light gray for the actual fluffy bit of the cotton is because that's really the easiest way to indicate where that ends and the page begins. Because they're white and the page is white, that's really the easiest way to distinguish the difference between the cotton and the paper. So I was concentrating more of the gray in the areas that would have had a little bit of shadow, and to distinguish between different sections of the cotton, because each of those bulbs has 3 to 4 to 5 separate little sections that come together. So I used the gray to show the separation of those, as well as the sort of outer limits of the cotton bulb, and also to shade sort of the center and parts of it that I imagine would be further from the light source. I also decided to go in with the brown brush pen, the 977 Tombow Brush Pen, a little bit on its own, using the smaller pen side, the marker side, to add a little bit more depth to the branches. I just found that even as I continued to build up the color, I wasn't getting quite as dark as I wanted in certain sections, so that's why I went in directly with the Tombow Brush Pen, but again on that marker side. And I also used a little bit of the brown brush pen, but again, using my clear blender to add a little bit of brown to the center of any of the cottons that were facing forward enough that you could see the center. Because I did find, looking at my own, that you could see the inside of the cotton, you could see brown in the center. So I tried to bring that to my representation of it. I also decided to add a second black rectangle inside the first that was a little thinner. I just thought it added a little bit something extra. I felt like there was something lacking, and that felt like it sort of completed the look of the cover page. So now I'm moving on to the quote page, and the quote I chose for June is, "There is beauty in simplicity," which I think is very, very true. And that's sort of the feel I have for June. It's just a very simple and light and airy and summery feel, and I think that's beautiful. And on this page, I wanted to fit in with the quote, with that theme, so I placed one single branch of cotton just coming up the side of the page there. And I used the same method to draw it as I did on the cover page, and I used the exact same method to color it in. Again, slowly building up the color over time to try to build up to an effect rather than starting off strong and then not really having any way to pull back. That's a tip I generally have in all creative endeavors for the most part. If you start small, if you start subtle, you can always build up from there, but it can be hard to go back once you've already made a bold choice. Now moving on to my monthly spread. As always, I do a traditional calendar for my monthlies. I just find that this is the easiest way for me to visualize the month and what's happening. It's the easiest way for me to see what's going on, what my work schedule is like, what my social life and events are like. It's how my brain works. So it's how I do it. And in my Rhodia Webnotebook, each of my days are 6 by 6. And I also used to do 6 by 6 squares in my Moleskine when I used a Moleskine notebook. I really like the style of lettering I did this month. I often do sort of a faux calligraphy style, but I went a little bit more jaunty, is that the word I'm looking for? A little more quirky with the lettering this time around. The letters are a little bit more tilted, a little more uneven, a little more bouncy looking than usual, and I like that. And instead of filling in that downstroke that I normally do, I normally draw that second line to thicken up the downstroke and then color it in. This time I decided to leave it open, and I really like that look. As I was drawing out the 2018 along the side, I had the brilliant idea to make the 0 in 2018 a cotton bulb. And you can't tell me it's not a genius idea, because I have already pat myself on the back so much for that idea that there's just no going back now. I'm just very proud of myself for that creativity. On to the next spread. This is my habits spread and also my mood tracker. I decided to go back to an old style of habit tracker that I used to do a while ago. This is one that I had been doing for a while, and I gave it up to be able to track more habits at once as I was leading up to getting my headshots taken. Because I had a bunch of habits I was trying to maintain to prepare myself for this photo shoot. Now that my headshots are done, I kind of want to go back to the original. I like tracking fewer habits. I just find I'm better about actually staying on top of them and actually tracking it when it's not quite so many. And a lot of the things I was tracking were really just duplicates, like tracking drinking water in the morning and in the afternoon and at night, or tracking doing my skincare in the morning and at night. And I can combine those and be a little more efficient about how I'm tracking them. So I decided to go back to that original style of habit tracker. And all I do is cross off the boxes or fill in the boxes as I complete the habits for each day. But I did keep my mood tracker the same as I usually do. It's a mood and sleep tracker. And I just put a dot under the amount of hours slept and the mood for each day. And then at the end of the month, I draw in the graph, and I use a thinner line and a thicker line to distinguish between the sleep and the moods. And then it gives me sort of an idea of how my moods and my sleep were over the month and how they influenced each other, if at all. And last but not least is my first weekly spread, keeping it super simple using my running task list as I have for quite a while now. If you are wondering how this kind of weekly works, if you don't really know what this is for, I've made an entire video on how the running task list or the running weekly works. It's a quite short video, but I just show how to set it up, how to use it, what it's for, and who it's good for. So I will link that in the cards and in the description box if you haven't seen it before, if you're new to my channel and want to know how that works. And then, of course, as always, I am numbering each page and going back to my index and adding those pages to the index because you gotta stay on top of it. So that is it for this video. I hope you folks enjoyed it. I love sharing my planning process with you all every single month. As always, if you have any suggestions or requests for themes that I can do in the future or other videos that you'd like to see from me, whether they're bullet journal related or not, let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear from you. I would also love to know what your June theme is if you have a theme for June. As always, if you want to recreate anything from my journal, I would love to see it. Feel free to tag me on Instagram so I can check it out. My handle is @ElizabethTurn. It will be linked in the description box for you. And I will see you very, very soon in my next video. Bye.